Hello everybody and welcome to this YouTube video where I'm going to be showing you guys how I made a progressive house style drop in FL Studios. And if you want to follow along, I'm going to leave the FLP somewhere down here in the description so you guys can follow along and see exactly how I made this drop. Okay, let's get right on into it. The first thing you're going to want to do when coming up with a progressive house drop is to create a good catchy melody. In progressive house, I would say melody is the most important aspect of the song. Even though the chords, the bass, the drums, the effects that you use are also important in progressive house, I would say specifically that the melody that you come up with is going to be the most important. And after fiddling around on the piano a little bit, this is the melody I came up with. Now it's a pretty simple melody with the first two parts just repeating, and then in the third and fourth bar I decided to move it up the scale to give it a bit more movement and then just bring it down again to give it closure on that F sharp there. So after coming up with a melody, the next step is to layer it to get a lead sound. I used 1/7 preset and I also used 3 silent 1 presets, and individually they sound like this. And then altogether, they sound like this. So we have the melody and we have the leads layered, and the next step is to come up with chords for this song. Now coming up with chords is not as hard as everybody thinks it is. I always just start with the bass notes of the chords. In this case it's A, E, C sharp minor, G sharp minor, and then it moves up to a B. I know that C sharp and G sharp are going to be minor chords since we're in the key of E, and the rest of them are major chords. So here is the chord progression in full. Nice. Nice. Okay, so we have the chords, but it would be pretty boring in a progressive house drop just to have these chords play out for the entire bar. So what I'm gonna do is just to change the pattern to give the rhythm a bit more of an interesting vibe. Okay, so once we've adjusted the rhythm to give it a bit more of a progressive house feel, this is what our chords sound like. Okay, so we have the chords, and once again I'm just gonna put it on 4 or 5 different layers that I like the sound of, and this is what the layers sound like individually. The final thing I did for this chord pattern was just to add this top line. And altogether, the chords sound like this. Now the mixing for these chords were pretty simple. I had some OTT, I added some sidechain with kickstart, then I added a bit of reverb with just fruity reverb. Nice, okay, so we have the chords done, we have the leads done, and now the next step is to look at the bass. Now the bass is super simple. All it does is just follows the root note of each chord, with the exception of this F sharp here, which just leads down to the E, so it's just the leading note. And then instead of holding the entire bar out with each note, I just changed up the rhythm slightly. Now the one thing I did do to spice up this bass line a little bit was just to add these little filler notes here and also here. I just felt like brought the punchiness of the bass through a bit more, and that was what I was wanting, so that's why I did it. Yes, okay, let's listen to this. So once I had the bass line, once again, I just layered it here, and individually they sound like this. And then for the sub bass, I had it playing the old root note. Wow, what a surprise. You can really hear the sidechain on this. And then for the actual basses, I added we have a kickstart, we have a bit of OTT at 14% just to glue them together. And then I put a high pass on it, which will leave room for both the sub bass and also for the kick drum, once we bring that in a second here. Alrighty, so finally we have the drum section. Ba-da-ba-bum. Now, progressive house drums are actually super easy. They consist of a kick, a couple of snares, and then a couple of rides. And just using these elements of the drums, they sound like this. So, just these main elements of the drums, it sounds good already. But the one thing Martin Garrix does do quite a lot is uses a lot of fills in his drum loops. So I added a bunch of fills here, and then in the second part of the drop, I added a few more rides, which I thought added to the drop quite nicely. Now, in terms of effects for the drums, all I did was put a bit of fruity reverb and some OTT to glue them all together. And altogether, the drums sound like this. Now, the final step for this drop was to add a bunch of effects, such as risers, downlifters, cymbal sweeps. So here's what all the risers sound like together, along with 3 of these fills, drum fills, just to show when the drop hits. Okay, so now we have all the elements of the drop, but before I show you guys, I just want to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber of this channel already, and also to give it a thumb up, or 2 thumbs up if you can. Just make sure you don't give it one of these. Thank you very much. So right now this channel is at 50-ish subscribers, and I promised myself that when I reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm gonna buy myself a new pair of headphones. I mean, look at these things. They're like $50 gaming headphones, not exactly what you want for audio production. So the quicker you help me out and get me to 1,000 subscribers, the quicker I can get rid of these things. Alright, so without any further ado, here is the Martin Garrix drop that we've created.